Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Crystal Richardson. Very happy to be with you today here on Life Innovation Global TV. We are on the World Speaks pre-shows, and today is about teamwork communication. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. This is Dr. Crystal Richardson again here on Life Innovation Global TV. The World Speaks. We have some amazing shows and different topics that we will be going over, and we want you to be a part of this starting in 2025. So, depending on when you're watching this particular show, it may be that you are already a part of our community. We would love to have you be a part, and you are taking advantage of some of our teachings and some of the concepts that we're sharing, and hopefully having where you're able to increase your exposure, your impact, and your legacy, as well as monetization and all of those things that really matter to us, right? Like it's important for us to have money in order to sustain our families and to build generational wealth, have where we know what's going to be happening tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, and the next month, and the next year related to our finances. And so part of what we go over is wealth planning and building up your wealth portfolio. But what we're going to talk about today and ways that can help you to do this is teamwork. So I talk about a lot of foundational items because there's a number of things that go into that end result that we want to have success in our life and in our business. And part of it has to do with a lot of these foundational items. And so one thing that I talk about, and some of you have brought it up on different posts, that they really, love the particular concept of non-negotiable foundations. Non-negotiable foundations, and I might actually just write a little mini book or pamphlet or a small book related to that, because there needs to be things in our lives, ladies and gentlemen, that we have that. Not going to budge on that. It has to be like a move of God. Like God has come down and tell us that we need to move on certain things. And part of that is what helps us to have success in our life and in our businesses and our family and whatnot. So I talk a lot about planning, and teamwork is a part of planning. I talk a lot about business. I talk a lot about family. A lot of times we put in place plans, strategic plans, marketing plans, and all kinds of different things related to our business. But what are we doing specifically in relation to our family, and ensuring that we have good communication, that we have some regular operating mechanisms, and that we have a teamwork mentality. Some of the same kind of things that we have in business are required for us to have a good family atmosphere. So even in our family, we're going through a couple things right now. And we had a family meeting the other night, and everybody's not in the same location. So we did have where, there were people online and people in person. But it's important for us to set up those kinds of things, even though it might be like, oh, there's some topics that you may not want to go into, but it's important for us to have good communication, right? And just go beyond the barrier of just having everything be superficial. So again, I say those are the kinds of things that we need in our business, and it's the kind of thing that we need in our family. So today we're talking about teamwork. And as usual, I do have a book here. The one I have today is the 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork. And that is by John Maxwell. And we'll be having where we'll do a few lessons from that. But I always have where I talk, sometimes I talk too long and we don't have a lot of time to get into the book. But I'm going to attempt to not do that today. And I'm going to say that I'm not going to do that today. I'll spend a ample amount of time, potentially the last 25% of this show today, from that actual book, because it really is a good book related to teamwork. Obviously, anything from John Maxwell, mostly for the most part, is really, really, really good. And so as we get into our show today, I want you to have a way of taking notes, and whether that's on your tablet, on your computer, on your phone, or if you have notebook, pen and paper. I'm a pen and paper kind of person. I like to be able to touch and feel and highlight and underline and put stars on stuff. And I know you can do all that online too, but we want to have pen and paper or some kind of way of taking notes so we can talk about teamwork communication on today. So some of the concepts we have are things that you've heard of before, but we're going to be putting it today into a 30-day plan type of mechanism for you to use to be able to do this with your teams and with your family and with your ministry and with your organization related to communication. So how do you build a 30-day plan where in that 30 days, you're able to take bite-sized chunks of information, share it, talk about it, and come up with what actually works for you related to communication and teamwork. So after this commercial break, we're going to come back and talk about the first concept for the first few days of this 30-day plan. Hey, everyone. Welcome to The World Speaks here on Life Innovation Global TV. That's LIGTV, the home of short, powerful content. I can't wait to get into some of the shows and topics that we will be doing for 2025, and where we will have what's called topic casts. And my friend JJ was really gracious enough to come here a bit ago and to do some commercials for me on that and what all of that means. And we'll be having where we'll be using a number of the commercials that he did for us coming up here soon for 2025. So today's show is on communication, and specifically teamwork communication, and a 30-day 30-day plan on how we can have better communication in our families, in our businesses, in our organizations, in our churches, wherever communication is needed, which is everywhere. It is important for us to start out with not just like jumping in and communicating. A lot of times I do have a number of different things that I talk about related to plans. My husband can tell you that I have had when we got married, I think it's about 33 years ago now, all different kinds of notes and lists and plans. And I still have, now boards in my office where there's various plans. I'm doing a number of things in various notebooks right now, leading into the new year. And I'm about to, for the next couple of weeks in the beginning of the year, redo those boards that I have in my office with specifically what has been outlined for this coming year. So, and you can start this anytime. Just because I'm saying January and December and all of these different things doesn't matter. Whenever it is that you are ready to start, because of maybe something that has transitioned in your life, you can start planning at any time. You don't have to wait till the beginning of the year. In the end of the year, feeding into January, you don't have to wait. So, as we talk about teamwork communication today, one of the first things I want you to write down is in relation to having where you do an evaluation. So again, I talk a lot about evaluations as well, and assessment. Do an assessment of where you think you are in your various areas of communication. Do an assessment. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of different ways that we communicate. And so whether it's written communication, phone, text, email, face to face, there's other various apps that people use to communicate, social media. Understand what we're looking at as far as what is the communication scenario. So the first thing that we need to do this assessment is what is the communication scenario that we're going to pick. So let's say that I want to do teamwork communication and have my family, be the team, or teamwork communication on my job, or I own a business and I have a team that I want to communicate with. So let's say that I have a team, I have a business, I have an organization, and I have a team that I want to communicate with. Okay, we've established the scenario and it's with your team. Now, let's say in that scenario that some of your people are in town and some of the people are out of town. So you have face-to-face communication, sometimes with those who are in town, but you have where it's over Teams or Google Meet or, whatever, Zoom, whatever the platform may be, where you have communication based on those platforms. So the scenario is a team and we need to have a team meeting. So the first part of this assessment is what is working and what is not working. What's working and what's not working. Now, that can go a lot of different ways related to this assessment, because it may be that you have team meetings and those communications are handled a certain way, or if you have different things that you need to have where you reach out to the team from time to time if there's like a quick question that you may have. Okay. Or it may be that there's a weekly communication that needs to go out. Part of this evaluation is, how is all of that happening right now? Okay. So is this via email? Is it that you jump on a meeting? Is it that you do a quick Facebook Messenger where you can call everyone? Is it that you have, based on these mechanisms, that there is a Google Drive that you use and information is on there? I say Google Drive, it can be any type of drive. But is it where some people like to be communicated to via text, some like to be communicated via a social media app, others like to be communicated straight through email? It just kind of depends. So part of your assessment is to see where you stand right now. And so as you're writing down this plan, the first part of this related to the assessment is to survey your team and to get feedback from your team on what do they feel is working and not working for them personally. And then we're talking about a team environment, right? So part of this is, if we're saying that it's a team, there's more than one person. Let's say there's 3, 5, 7 people. Then do you have where you do individual communications based on their preference, or that you come up with what works for the majority and you have everyone else fall into line with what's working best for the majority? So you see, there's a number of things that we need to consider when we're talking about these team dynamics. And this may not be a show that we're able to get through everything in one show. So I might have to have this as a little bit of a series, because communication tends to be one of those things that comes up high on the list of, why families have issues, why relationships have issues, why businesses have issues, is because of lack of communication, or maybe too much communication, but not on the right thing. So that's something that we need to look at in our assessment. And then we need to see, when we do the assessment, what are the gaps that have come up that we need to address? So what's working well, what's not working well, and where are the gaps? So part of this has to do with us also being very extremely honest with ourselves and with the communication that comes in the survey. Now, some people, if communication is an issue in your organization, then it may be that you might want to do an anonymous survey to get people's input on what they feel is working, not working, where the gaps are, and even some suggestions from them on what might work better in your organization. So sometimes, if we don't have that openness where, people feel that they can be honest and not have where there's some kind of repercussions or consequences for them being honest, then it might be better. There's a lot of different survey apps out there, Survey Monkey, and there's another one starts with an M. I can't remember right now what it is, but there's a number of different apps out there where you can have an anonymous survey for your team. And even back to the paper method, where there's a suggestion box or a survey box and they put the information in there, right? Some people are going back to some of those kinds of things. As long as you don't try to do a writing analysis of whose writing is on the paper, or it can just be that they have to put an X or something. But I'm just saying that do anything that you need to do to get a really good assessment so that you can have a benchmark to go against. When you make some changes, you can see, wow, how far did we come? How well did we do in implementing some changes that are specific to our team? So there's a lot of different books, methods, ways that people have related to building better communication. But at the end of the day, it boils down to what works best for your team. So the first few days that we're talking about, a 30-day plan, would be for you to have where you do that assessment, okay? And what's working, what's not working, and what gaps need to be filled. The next thing is to see, based on those gaps, which things do we want to prioritize? So this is all within the first week of this 30-day plan. What do we want to prioritize still in this first week? We did the assessment. Then the next few days of the week, we're looking to see, what do we need to prioritize as the major portions of these gaps that we want to fill, and how are we going to fill them? Okay. And so we need to ensure when we're doing that, that this aligns with the expected outcome for the team. And one of the things I forgot to mention is that we always go into the meeting with a purpose and an intention. And so that everyone can say, what it is that they want to get out of that particular meeting. And then based on that, we can develop how we want to handle this first week. So what do I mean by that? Going into the meeting, day one, we're talking about communication, team communication, and the purpose of the meeting. Okay, so you've outlined that. The next thing that you've outlined is that we're going to do an assessment to see where we are. What are all the different ways that we communicate and why? And are they working or not working? Okay, then we're going to see, based on that, what are the gaps? Based on those gaps, we then can put in place goals on prioritizing which gap should be addressed first. So I just wanted to kind of do that little review and make sure that we were all on the same page of where we are right now, because this is still the first week. This is the first couple, 2, 3, 4 days. The next thing related to the gaps is, based on what we have prioritized, it's important that we get input from everyone in the group. And a lot of times, if it's 3, 5, 7 people, even if it's more people, we're not necessarily going to be able to please everyone. Excuse me. We're not necessarily going to be able to please everyone. And so it's going to be important for us to do the best that we can to have where it feels like and is a win-win for every single team member, even if we weren't able to actually take their suggestion or have where we totally address their inputs. So that's important, because then you're going to have someone that doesn't feel heard. They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel like a part of the team because all of what they stated did not get incorporated. So aligning the solutions and the goals related to the team is going to be very extremely important. So by the end of that first week, one of the other things that we want to do is have where we have everyone or one person or a few people, whoever's interested, or whoever we might have to volunteer to do this, is to look up various ways that teams communicate and come up with some tools, come up with some ways that work really well for people. Some of it is having various types of community calendars where everyone knows what's going on, what's coming up. And again, there's lots of apps for that. I'm not going to start naming any or endorse any necessarily, but there's lots of apps that have where you can communicate what is coming up to the team. And the same for part of what this is, I'm saying communication is key, is project management. A lot of it is, we have a project, we have these deliverables. How do you want this communicated? So again, there's various ways of doing that, and lots of really great apps out there and tools and databases to be able to manage that. But the thing is that everybody has to buy in that they're going to utilize it. Okay. And so some of it may need to be mandated, but it is where we want everyone to feel like they've had input, and make sure that everyone's trained on the apps. Don't just assume that everyone's going to be able to go in there and utilize it effectively if they haven't had some kind of training. So we really want to make sure that we take that into consideration. Okay. So the end of that first week, we should have by now that we have the assessment, what works, doesn't work, what gaps do we have, did we communicate back with the team to make sure that all of this is what the team really meant, and do we have where we now have ways of looking at how are we going to address what these gaps are, because we're going to make a priority list of what we're going to look at first, And the last part of week number 1 is to look at some tools that we can use to better our communication. So again, there's lots of databases, there's lots of apps, there's lots of ways for project management, for communicating based on schedules and calendars and all of those things. So it'll be very important for us to look at the end of week 1 as a success, because we have where everyone is communicating what they feel are some of the gaps and what's working and not working for them individually and as a team. And so I'm going to play a quick commercial here related to some things we have coming up with our award ceremony for you, those who have excelled in various areas of business and of life. And that'll be coming up during 2025. And after we get back from this commercial, we're going to go into parts of week 2 and 3. And as promised, I am going to be getting over to our book over here, The Laws of Teamwork by John Maxwell. We'll be right back. Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Crystal Richardson, and I'm so extremely happy to be with you today here on Life Innovation Global TV. And this is The World Speaks. We are talking about teamwork communication on today. And part of this is how do we build legacy, build impact, build a life that we are proud of. I had maybe potentially some awkward pauses right there, but part of what I wanted to say is that the word build is very important. And here on LIGTV and The World Speaks, we're going to be having a number of conversations with people on various topics. And all of it is to have where we are pouring into ourselves and into others related to building a life of positive impact. And by doing that, it allows us to have more impact in the world. It allows us to have more exposure, get our message out, potentially have more monetization. You know, that's part of what I do as a wealth strategist, wealth innovation strategist. But the main thing that I wanted to pause on was because I was using the word build. And so how do we build all of these things that we're talking about? Well, for one, there's a lot of ways, but for one, having people surround you that believe in your mission, believe in your purpose, and have where they take it as their own, where then we can say we. That we has to do with team. And how do we get people into a mode of wanting to say we? Part of it is with communication and our actions, and really being able to rally people around one key objective, one key intention, where then everyone takes that as their own. How do we do that? Well, part of it is with communication. And so our show today on teamwork communication has gone over a number of different things for week number 1. And as we, hurry into the second half of our show today, we're going to go into what is involved with week number 2. So the key words for week number 2 are clarity, transparency, and fun. Clarity, transparency, and fun. So what do I mean by that? The first thing is that we want to ensure that we are always asking for feedback. So part of clarity is asking for feedback. If we are communicating something to our team, and we've gone through week 1 where we figure out what works and doesn't work related to the actual mechanisms of communication, and we've made a priority list of the things that we want to work on and build toward as a team. One of the things that is important is that everyone understands where we are, where we were, and where we hope to go. So that clarity is very important. And some people are okay with the spoken word. Some people need it written. Some people need to have where, it's outlined in a concrete plan where they are very, very clear. They can go back and reference it. But people have said time and time again, even on a meeting that I was on yesterday, if they don't understand it, then they can't stand behind it. If they don't understand it, then they're not going to put any time toward it. If they don't understand it, may not even ask any questions, might just say okay, but then nothing gets done toward it. So clarity is very, 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 very extremely important when we talk about teams, because we're talking about more than one person with more than one mind, with more than one thing going on in their life. In this particular project or this particular initiative is only one part of that. So having clarity in the communication is key. Having clarity. And then having transparency, because depending on what's going on in the team, you have all these different people. They have different households, most likely. They have different educational backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, potentially. They have different things potentially going on with their health of people in their family, all sorts of things. Like it could be the weather, might be snowed in, not here in Arizona, but it might have where there's, different things that come up where there's an ill family member, or they may have a death in the family, or somebody gets a promotion and needs to move away with their spouse that got a promotion and got a better job. And so now they need to move. Can they work online or not? Like there's all these different things that come up. But having transparency, having where you just share even just a little bit about what's going on in your life, helps people to understand where you're coming from, helps them to feel more connected, and helps them to understand that they can have transparency as well, and that it's not held against them depending on what it is, and it's not where it needs to be this long drawn out like drama type situation. Like every time you say, hey, how are you doing, like, what's up with you today, and it's like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe this, and then they go into like, a 7 to 10 minute monologue on all the things that are going on, down to the cat or the dog that had something happen to it. And I'm not saying anything about uh pets are very important, okay? But I'm saying transparency goes to a certain amount before it turns into a person who just has where they're communicating a number of things that are potentially could be considered, drama every single day. So part of what I'm just saying is, have clarity on what it is that you want to communicate, how you want it to communicate it, and then have where there's operating mechanisms that are put in place on how people want to be communicated to. And a lot of that also has to do even with, like, going back in the day, Robert's Rules of Order related to the meetings, and how you can put those kinds of guidelines in place to ensure that communication flows in a succinct way. And most people, like to have that kind of order because it lets them know what to expect. So there's not, something that comes out of the blue. But what we're talking about right now is clarity. And then we talked about transparency. So just remember, with the transparency, give a little, don't necessarily give too much where it seems like a big drama situation right in the middle of a meeting or whatever, but give enough where people can also feel that they have some kind of connection with you, and the same with you with them. And so you can have some level of compassion and empathy, depending on what's going on, but you still have to have rules and guidelines. So with that, the last part of week 2 is having where you've, developed some things, you've come up with the gaps, you've talked about, what are the things that we need to look at, and you've prioritized them, as part of week 1. And going into week 2, we've talked about clarity. So you're gaining more clarity related to what we need to do to build better communication in our team. And you've been transparent, like, when we have this kind of meeting, there's no agenda. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know where we're going in this meeting. And so it'd be great if we had an agenda. And then it would be great if we had action items. So again, those are things that you can put mechanisms in place to be able to ensure that those things happen. And being transparent and have where people bring that up as one thing that is a pet peeve for them, or one thing that they feel has been lacking, then you've identified a gap, and you've identified something that, they've either said it or, given some examples and how it has held the whole company back or the whole organization back. And then you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know, that was an issue. And so having that transparency is great. So the last part of week 2 is having where we just step back and maybe do something fun to have where, we're communicating with the team. And then we're also having where we're not just like, nose to the stone. That's not even what that's supposed to say. Where we're just like so into this that it seems like a chore. Have where we, in the middle of this 4-week plan, this 30-day plan, have where we do something fun, just kind of step back and have a fun activity, play a game, have where you take everybody to lunch, or have some little contest or something that you can do to kind of break up something that could be potentially very serious. Because if somebody needs to have like a 30-day team communication plan, it could be that things are coasting along and going pretty well, but you just want to make it better. Or it could actually be that the organization has some issues and it might be a very tense time. So having, at the end of the second week, which, then you're halfway through this 30-day plan, the end of the second week, to do something fun, I think is good, because that helps us to kind of break up the seriousness and help people to maybe reconnect during that time. Okay. And so as we get ready to go into week 3, I'm going to just thank E360 TV for having us on, and play a little commercial from them. And then we'll be right back with week 3 and 4 and go into some related to the laws of teamwork. Hey, everyone. This is Dr. Crystal Richardson, and I'm so happy to be with you here on Life Innovation Global TV. We are talking about teamwork communication. And part of what we're talking about is how important it is for anything related to building our businesses, building up our family. Our family is a team, and our organizations, our churches, all of that is very, very key. And so, part of what I want to talk about today is we're going into a 30-day plan related to teamwork communication. We've talked about week 1 and how to establish the plan. And week 2, we went into different things that we can do to get the proper inputs to making better communication. And then week 3, part of what we want to talk about is feedback and having a way of having a good feedback mechanism. So we talked about week 2, like how we can be transparent, how we can provide clarity, but this one is now like, how can we provide good feedback to our team members, and how can they provide feedback to us? Like, what is the mechanism to use so that people are clear on, if there's something that's not working well, or even if it is working, because feedback is not always negative. If there is something that is working, how do we provide that feedback? So what is the mechanism? And then what is that feedback cycle? So what do I mean by that? Is this something that's all immediate, or do we have like once a week, we say, okay, team, this is what we're doing, and this is our weekly meeting, this is our monthly meeting. What are some things that we can do better? So what are the mechanisms? What's the cycle? And then if there's something that doesn't quite jive and there's some conflict, then how do we provide information on how we in our specific team handle conflict resolution? And the conflict might just be that, one person has one opinion, one has another opinion. There's no hostility. It's just like two different opinions. Or it could be that things get like a little heated. So we have to have potentially, as part of our procedures for communication, how we handle those things. So that just makes it easier. We know the mechanism, we know how often, whether it's immediate or, once a week, you save whatever you have for that once a week or once a month meeting. And then how do you handle when there's a disagreement or conflict? Okay. So that takes us through week 3 on how we handle all of those kinds of things. And then week 4, because we have to get over here to our book. I said that we were going to get to our book, and so I have to make sure that we do. I'll just grab it right now. So I'll have it over here with a few of the pages that have been marked. This is the 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork. And so really looking forward to sharing some on here. It says, embrace them and empower your team. Embrace the laws and empower your team. So as we go through this 30-day plan, the last week, week 4, is related to how we can just continue on this path and make things better. So for communication, whether it's with your family, with your organization, with your church, or with your business, have KPIs, key performance indicators. So a way to measure, are things getting better? And so how do you do that related to teamwork? There's a number of different things that we can do. Like, we said that we were going to have a stand-up meeting every day for 5 minutes. Did we have that? Make it measurable. And we said that we were going to send out an agenda. We're going to have action items, and we're going to send out the minutes. And it's all going to be done in a timely manner. Did that get done? And we said that if we're talking about this particular topic, we're going to be clear on, the 3 bullet points for that particular topic, and 3 for the next topic, and 3 for the next topic, all within like 15-minute blocks. Like however it is that you want to have, that you're saying that you want to communicate. Everything's supposed to be sent by email. We're not going to be sending text messages anymore. Did any text messages get sent out? Yes, no. So there's lots of ways that you can have where you can measure, and then have where you put in place, you can do some research, do some things, and put in place some best practices related to, how things are going, how other companies do this, how you can ask a friend, phone a friend, ask a friend, how they do it. But there's lots of information on the internet now. So you can measure, you can look at best practices, and then look at how you're going to do better in the future and hold yourself to that. So again, having a way of measuring, okay, this is what we're going to start doing now. And this is how we're going to communicate it. It's going to be written out in a procedure, and everybody's going to sign this procedure that they understand, a training document or whatever, related to how we're going to communicate. Teamwork communication. And then, did we actually do it? It's 14 days later, it's a month later, it's a quarter later, did we actually do it? So you have a way of having various portions of that being measurable. And we've talked about SMART goals before: specific, measurable, achievable, and it's realistic and it's time bound. And people have various words that they use for those. And you can go back to a previous show or just look up, how to have SMART goals. But this helps us, ladies and gentlemen, related to communication, because this is one of those non-negotiable foundations, is that we have to have open, clear communication, be transparent, have where we have a frequency, a mechanism, get input from the whole team, like, a number of the different things that I am summarizing based on what I've been talking about, for this show. So all of these are very important, non-negotiable foundations for how we work in our teams. And that all starts with communication. And one of the books that I have is the 51 Powerful P's of Public Speaking. And public speaking is not just up on the stage. It also has to do with one-on-one communication, or if you're in a team, or if you're giving a presentation, at the front of the room. If you are at the car dealership, that's public speaking. Anything where you're speaking and it's not just to yourself is considered public speaking. So I'm going to play this commercial for the book that I have, and would love to have you get one on Amazon or any of the other platforms we have, and leave a positive review. That would be great. So communication is key in all of what we're saying that we want to do. To do better in our families, to do better in our businesses, to do better in our ministries. Speaking is key. We're going to go into this book, and we do have some time now left to look at this, and looking forward to discussing this with you. Hey, everybody. We're coming to the end of our show for today. And this is the show on teamwork communication. And this particular book is on teamwork. Excited to be able to share some of the concepts with you. We're not going to go into too much detail, but what we are going to do is look at some of the titles of these 17 indisputable laws of teamwork. I'm not going to just start at law number one. The one that I want to start with is in relation to number 9, the law of accountability. Accountability, the law of accountability. Teammates must be able to count on each other when it counts. Many people have where, they've said, that this person dropped the ball, or even self-proclaim like, oh, I'm so sorry I dropped the ball on this. So being able to count on a person when it counts. And that's basically saying what you're going to do and then doing what you say that you're going to do in the time frame that you said that you were going to do it. It helps the whole team to feel better about knowing that they can count on you. Now, I know that things come up. Things have come up with me, and it's tough. It's really tough to have where you can meet every single thing that you've said, 100% of the time. But part of what this is saying is that we need to do our best to do that so that we can have accountability. That is law number 9. One of the other ones that I really liked had to do with vision, the law of compass. And so in my vision meetings that I have, each area has an actual compass related to it. And whether the compass is pointing over here to having a mission statement or a purpose, or the compass is stating over here, that there's going to be things that are going to be distractions, or the compass is over here saying that we need to have clear goals. Like, all of it is related to vision. So this is saying vision gives team members direction and confidence. So being able to communicate, because we're talking about teamwork communication today, they can have a clear direction and confidence in what it is that they're doing, because they have the vision is written down and it's been communicated and understood. That gives them confidence, like, oh, okay, I get it, I understand where we're going. Another one is the law of edge. Oh, and that one for the vision is number 7. This one is number 15, the law of edge. And it says the difference between two equally talented teams is leadership. The difference between two equally talented teams is leadership. So we talk about the edge. One team might do better than another team because of them having better leadership, and leadership that really cares, leadership that are putting in place some of these communication tips that we've been talking about here in this show, of getting the team involved, like what works, what doesn't work, what can we do better, and having where we're clear and we're transparent, and we listen. Having good communication skills is also about listening and being able to count on one another, as it says here in number 9. And so let's look at number 5, the law of the chain. The strength of a team is impacted by its weakest link. The strength of a team is impacted by its weakest link. So as we think about that, are we the weakest link? Are we the weakest link on our team? And being able to compensate for that is where we're saying that it's important for us to have better communication, and that's something that is easily fixed. Is attempt to communicate more. And there's going to be some things that people may misunderstand. You may be misunderstood. It may come out right. It may come out in a way that it's like, wow, that wasn't exactly how I wanted to say that, but say that. Don't just go away and have where you don't apologize, or you don't say, well, maybe I need to try that again. Depending on what it's about, it would be where the person really sees that you're attempting to do better at your communication. And it's going to be a process. So give yourself some grace, give other people grace, and have where we do our best not to be the weakest link. We'll just do one more before we end today. And the one that we'll do is, let's see, the law of identity. Shared values define the team. Shared values define the team. Shared values define the team. The law of identity. So there's a lot of great items in here, and these 17 indisputable laws. And we just kind of went over some of the titles, not the actual concepts in the book, but we'll be going over some on teamwork again. I hope you got something that helped you along your way here at Life Innovation Global TV. And The World Speaks. We'll have a lot more information for you as we go into January 2025. And that is when we're going to be launching some of our actual shows and having you hear from some of our other special guests. God bless you. Thank you for being with us today. And remember, let's keep rising together.